Mysterious boy hides capabilities, only to reveal an ounce of his potential when needed. A bus pulls up to a nearby stop to allow an elderly on board. Our protagonist observes a young girl ask a blonde boy to relinquish his seat for the elderly. Refusing, the girl now asks if anyone would like to give their seat to the poor elderly. Looking to his left, he notices that another fellow student is ignoring the plea and instead reading a book. Then someone offers their seat. Arriving at his destination, it's revealed that it's his first day at a prestigious school that yields high employment after graduation. Heading up the stairs, our protagonist is stopped by the fellow student reading the book. Asking why our protagonist was staring at her, our protagonist replies that he was wondering if she wasn't giving up her seat because she didn't want to get involved, only to be corrected by her as she didn't simply want to give up because of her conviction. Moving on to the opening ceremony, the student council president, Horikita Manabu, welcomes the new first years. Cutting to Class 1D, we see the formation of groups. Our protagonist is nested in a corner, and coincidentally sitting next to the girl from earlier. Just then Harada Yosuke introduces himself, asking everyone for a brief introduction. Next is an adorable girl, Kushida Kikyo. Finally it's our protagonist's turn, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. Knowing first impressions are everything, Ayanokoji introduces himself in a mellow tone. Before the rest of the students, the homeroom teacher, Chabashira say. Handing out student handbooks, Chabashira explains that everyone will be living on campus, communication with the outside world is prohibited and students will be allotted points based on merit. Ending the introduction, Chabashira explains that every student initially is given an absurd 100,000 points for this. That evening, Ayanokoji is shopping for essentials, noting down a lot of free amenities, most likely for those who've used up their points for the month. Running into the same girl, she reluctantly introduces herself as Horikita Suzune, like the student council president Horikita Manabu. Outside, a fellow 1D student is being picked, showing a hierarchy based on classes that have already been formed. Knocking down a bin in frustration, the fellow 1D student walks away. Doing the right thing, Ayanokoji picks up the bin. Later in the month, our protagonist fails in making friends whilst Horikita also sits as a loner, claiming that she prefers to be alone. Heading to the bathroom, Ayanokoji is called by the Kushida. She mentions that she wants to grow closer to Horikita, already knowing that Horikita doesn't want any friends. That evening Ayanokoji starts a conversation with Horikita. First mentioning that all the students are either napping, skipping or ignoring the lessons, he invites Horikita to a cafe, under Kushida's orders. Sitting down, Kushida joins them and attempts to make conversation, remarking the coincidence of bumping into each other. Horikita stands up to leave, stating that she needs no friends and that she's been alone her entire life. On a gloomy day, the first day of the next month has arrived. All classes are in uproar as they haven't received a single point for the month. Chabashira, with a wide grin, declares that the students' work ethic reflects the number of points they receive. Ending the scene, since the class has been slacking, Chabashira exclaims that everyone will be receiving 0 points this month, as they are all the same as garbage. It's revealed that each class starts with 1,000 class points, which determine the amount of points everyone receives per month. As Class D has been slacking, their class points are now 0. They can earn more throughout the year by The next day, Horikita suspiciously offers to buy Ayanokoji a meal. The moment he digs in, she demands that he contact his 3 friends, as they are the lowest scoring in the class, and set up a study group. Knowing he can't back out, Ayanokoji gives it a try, only to be rejected by all 3. As an alternate method, Ayanokoji contacts Kushida, knowing she'll be able to get the 3 boys to study with her. Notifying Horikita of the successful plan, he's reprimanded for inviting Kushida to the study group. The day of the study group, Horikita and the lowest scoring student, Ken Sudo, ultimately get into a fight, with Sudo storming out. That night, after a long study session, Ayanokoji gets hungry. Heading out to see what stores are open, he overhears the student council president and Horikita chatting. With the conversation heating up, the president gets physical with his younger sister, reprimanding her for being ignorant to her weaknesses. Before the president is able to injure Horikita, our protagonist steps in. Grabbing hold of the president's arms, Ayanokoji lowers his guard when the president lowers his arms. All of a sudden, the president swings the back of his fist towards Ayanokoji's face. Having barely missed, the president follows up with a kick and a grab, both with Ayanokoji dodging and parrying. Releasing that Ayanokoji is the student that intentionally got all 50s in his entrance exams, he leaves the two alone. Due to her little fight with Sudo, the study group continues without Horikita. On the day of the exam, it's revealed that everyone was barely able to pass. That evening, heading back to his dorm, Ayanokoji stumbles onto Sudo picking a fight with Class C's leader Ryuan. With Class B's leader, Ichinos, breaking up the fight, Ayanokoji is able to prevent Sudo from further being agitated. Attempting to make up for her mistakes, Horikita is ignored by Sudo, attempting to reckon. As the next exam approaches, Ayanokoji and Kushida chat to upperclassmen. Realizing that the previous year's exams are the same as this year's, Kushida and Ayanokoji are able to negotiate a price for the exam solutions. Passing out the solutions, the class is able to pass, all but Sudo of course. Attempting to dispute Sudo's expulsion, Ayanokoji offers to buy the remaining missing marks from Chabashira only to realize that he doesn't have enough. Appearing from hiding, Horikita offers to split the payment, ultimately allowing Sudo to pass. Celebrating in Ayanokoji's room, Sudo the gang is surprised when Ayanokoji gives Horikita all the credit. As for why Sudo was able to pass, seeing Horikita get all the attention, Kushida begins to act off. After everyone had left, Ayanokoji stumbles upon Kushida talking to herself. Begin caught listening in, it's revealed that Kushida despises Horikita. The scene ends, with Ayanokoji wondering if this is the real Kushida or not. The next day, Ichinos asks for Ayanokoji's help with a confession. Learning that a fellow student is going to confess to Ichinos's, she wants Ayanokoji to act as her boyfriend. Rejecting the idea, Ayanokoji gives Ichinos some advice. Giving Ichinos and her lover some space, we see Ichinos properly reject her lover's feelings. Even though it may have hurt, it was the right thing to do. The next day, Sudo is caught in some drama. Accused of beating up some Class C students, the class decides to work together to prove otherwise. With Ayanokoji reaching out to Ichinos for further information, they realize that a girl, Sakura, in their class is acting quite suspicious. With Kushida chasing after her, Sakura accidentally drops her camera. Apologizing for the accident, Kushida offers to fix it with her. Bringing Ayanokoji along, Kushida and Sakura enter. With the creepy receptionist staring at Sakura, Ayanokoji steps in filling out the necessary paperwork. With the three sitting and chatting, Kushida rushes to the bathroom, leaving Sakura and Ayanokoji to chat. Offering her advice, he questions her reasons for being so preserved, even speculating that she has evidence to help Sudo. As it gets dark, the three head home, with Kushida stopping by Ayanokoji's room. Having found Sakura's private account, Kushida shows images of Sakura posed outwardly and energetic, so different that Ayanokoji doesn't even recognize her, due to the contrast in behavior. On the day of the trial for Sudo's actions, we see both class teachers with their respective student representatives in the presence of the student council president. With the trial beginning, we see the injured Class C students claim Sudo assaulted them. With Sudo snapping back at them, the trial gets nowhere with no evidence. Coming to a conclusion, based on the fact that one party is injured and another isn't, the president is interrupted by Horikita. Having been zoned out, in the presence of her brother, Ayanokoji is forced to stimulate her, snapping her out of her daze. Now focused, Class D brings in Sakura. Showing a picture of Sudo being surrounded by the members of Class C, both parties agree to settle with a 2-week suspension for Sudo and only a 1-week suspension for the injured. Knowing that Horikita wouldn't accept such a compromise, the president gives both parties until tomorrow to offer extra evidence before his final judgment. With the trial ending, the president is disappointed to see Ayanokoji do nothing, challenging him to resolve Sudo's issue. Thanking Sakura for confidence, Ayanokoji and Horikita set a trap for the Class C students. Inviting them back to the location of their confrontation with Sudo, they are shaken to see security cameras in the threatening the Class C students to retract their statement, or else Class D will ask to check the footage of the cameras. The Class C students retract their statement. Being suddenly called, Sakura is seen harassed by the repair receptionist, having found out her true identity. With the assistance of Ichinos, Ayanokoji is able to stall long enough for security to arrest the store clerk, saving Sakura's life. Cutting to the rooftop, Chabashira commends Horikita on getting Class C to retract their appeal. But she gives Horikita some advice. She advises her to learn as much as she can about Ayanokoji, as he is the most mysterious of all the students. Confronting Ayanokoji on what Chabashira meant, Ayanokoji warns Horikita to not meddle in his life. The next day, the gang head off to a pool, noting that they're on break. Reluctant at first, the gang begin to have fun whilst the boys act suspicious. Running into issues, the boys are revealed to be peeping in the ladies' lockers, drawing the attention of Class C, A and the student president. Horikita is able to draw everyone's attention, announcing that she will defeat and reign over all the students. With the day coming to an end, it's revealed that Ayanokoji told Horikita about the boys' peeping plan, and is told to cool off when she reverts to her serious self. Cut to a couple days later, we see Chabashira mention that Ayanokoji's father has asked her to sabotage and get him expelled. Chabashira then asks for Ayanokoji to ascend to Class A, and in exchange she'll keep silent about his father's expulsion. With the grade on a cruise ship, Harada is seen asking Ayanokoji to act as a mediator between him and her, when it comes to serious conversation. With Horikita and Ayanokoji chatting, they're interrupted by Ryuan and his henchmen. With him commending Horikita's bravery at the pool, he gets into a fight with Ibuki, one of his lackeys. Forced to step in, Albert, another of Ryuan's lackeys, Albert removes any attempts of Ibuki harming Ryuan. Attempting to offer a hand, Ayanokoji instead is told to not concern himself. The next day, the island exam begins. The rules are as follows. Each team is provided with food and water that will last throughout the exam. They are able to purchase items with class points. They can clam zones as a class, that will generate them extra class points, whilst also making a good spot to camp. Any student can drop out whenever, but it'll cost the class points. There must be a leader, and the leader can only be changed if the leader drops out. Finally, at the end, all classes can guess other classes' leader, with correct guesses resulting in the guessed class to have all their points for the event removed, but an incorrect guess will have the same conditions dealt to the class guessing. With Class D searching for campsites, Ayanokoji stumble upon Class A, with Class A's leader possibly holding the key card that reveals themselves as leader. Returning to the group, we see Class D begin gathering drinking essentials, along with setting up a tent and fire. They ultimately decide on Horikita as the class. As night falls, the class begins to plan out the game plan for the next few days, only for a search party to stumble upon a beaten-up Ibuki, one of Ryuan's lackeys. Allowing her to rest with the group, the gang head off to sleep. The next morning, Ayanokoji and Horikita decide to visit the other classes. Visiting Class B, we see Ichino's class getting along, although suspiciously they are also housing a Class C member as well. Visiting Class A, we see that Katsuragi, Class A's leader, is not budging in terms of sharing information. Finally, Horikita and Ayanokoji are both surprised to see Ryuan, having spent all their class points and not taking the exam seriously. Returning to the camp, there is an uproar, as the girls are blaming the boys for stealing one of the girls' panties. Asking for a search of their clothes, Ayanokoji discovers that one of the boys is in possession of the lost panties. Unable to say no, Ayanokoji ultimately ends up with the lost item. With Harada patting down the boys, he confronts Ayanokoji in private, reassured that Ayanokoji isn't the culprit. The next day, Ayanokoji checks on Horikita only to realize her condition has gotten worse, especially with her cleaning off in a nearby lake. All of a sudden an emergency has occurred back at camp, with a tent being set on fire. It begins to rain. With clothes soaked and backstabbed, Harada begins to break down only Ayanokoji to nudge Harada in the right direction. Giving orders, Harada is able to save the situation. Cutting to Ibuki, we see her run off, with Horikita following her. Taunting Ibuki, Horikita is struck down ultimately with Ibuki obtaining the key card, revealing the leader of Class D to an unknown figure. Crumpled up at her defeat, Horikita is forced to drop out due to her With the exam coming to an end, the classes begin guessing other classes' leaders. Before the announcements are made, Ryuan is revealed to have stayed on the island whilst all of his other class members dropped out. Announcing the results, Class C is last, Class A is second last, Class B is second, and in first is Class D. Having heard of their victory, Horikita immediately asks Ayanokoji for answers. Revealing that everything was under his control, he explains the following. Class A's leader was most likely not Katsuragi and must have been his right-hand man. Class B is allied with Class D, so no need to guess their leader, and Class C had to have been Ruyan, as he's the only one crazy enough to stay on the island. Additionally, Ayanokoji gave Horikita all the credit. Flustered by his genius, Horikita agrees to trust and befriend Ayanokoji, making him her first. But it's revealed that he only decided to win because of the threat his father has on him, and that people around him are nothing but pawns for his use and disposal. Thanks for watching. Check out one of our other videos. Like, comment and subscribe.